I used to romanticize the city at night. The way the amber streetlights painted shadows across cracked sidewalks, how the tram cables swayed overhead like ghostly wires. The stillness of a sleeping world felt peaceful, like I was the only soul awake, drifting through forgotten streets. Back then, I was 16 and stupidly brave, a girl who loved walking through the city alone after dark. It made me feel mature, powerful, untouchable. That illusion shattered on a damp, windswept Thursday night in November. It was around 10:15 p.m., and the air in my Eastern European city had taken on the damp, aching chill that settles deep into your bones. I was waiting alone at an old tram stop, the kind with cracked glass panels, graffiti tags, and a rusting bench that creaked when I sat. I'd missed the second-to-last tram, but another one was coming soon. 2 tram lines ran past the stop, both leading in the direction of my neighborhood. I'd always considered that a stroke of luck. That night, I would have traded that luck for a dead phone and a taxi fare. As I sat on the cold bench, lost in thought, I heard footsteps approach. Not rushed, not timid, just deliberate. A man stepped into the shelter without a word. I barely registered him at first. I assumed he was another late-night commuter. He stood a little too close, not directly beside me, but close enough that I could sense his body heat through the cold. That was the first warning sign. The platform was empty. There was space. Why stand here? I glanced sideways. He was huge, tall, at least 6 feet 5 inches, and built like a bear, broad shoulders, massive arms, bald head glinting faintly under the street lamp. He wore a dark wool coat, soaked at the edges from the rain. But that wasn't what chilled me. He was staring at me, not just watching. Staring, eyes unblinking, mouth closed, face blank. No curiosity, no recognition, just pure, focused attention, as if he were mentally peeling back my skin to see what was underneath. I felt a cold, clammy wave wash over me. Instinct kicked in before reason. I looked away, pretended I hadn't noticed him. My phone screen glowed with only 4% battery. No signal. Of course. I cleared my throat. "Hi," I muttered, forcing out anything to break the tension. He didn't respond. Didn't blink. Didn't move. I suddenly became hyper-aware of everything. The echo of dripping water from a leaking pipe behind us, the flickering neon pharmacy sign across the street, and the silence. No cars. No voices. No footsteps. Just me and him. Alone. I tried not to look at him again, but my curiosity and fear got the better of me. I snuck another glance. He was still staring. Expressionless. I shifted on the bench and weighed my options. If I got up and walked away, would he follow me? I was small, 5 feet 2 inches, barely 100 pounds. He could catch me in 3 strides. I didn't even know if I could outrun him for more than a minute. And I sure as hell wasn't walking through the alleys near the old station. Those were sketchy enough in daylight. The first tram appeared in the distance. I prayed it was one of the 2 lines I could take. It was. As it rolled into the station, squealing and humming like some metal beast, I stood slowly and approached the door. So did he. I waited, hoping he'd get on and take a seat elsewhere. He didn't. He stayed behind me, still staring. I hesitated. My gut screamed not to get on this tram, not with him. But if I let it leave, the next one might be the last. I had to think. Fast. I made a decision. I boarded the tram. I sat down near the front, where the driver sat behind a scratched-up glass panel. I chose the seat next to the door, just in case I had to bolt. The man entered moments later. He didn't sit near me. Not yet. He picked a seat at the very back, but I could feel his eyes, boring into the back of my head. I clenched my jaw, pretending to scroll through my nearly dead phone, but my hands were shaking too much to even type. The tram rolled forward, shuddering on the tracks. I decided I couldn't let him see where I lived. If I got off at my stop and he followed, I was done. My street was quiet. Residential. No foot traffic. No stores. No help. So I did something impulsive. At the next stop, a well-lit one with a convenience store, I got off. I didn't look back. I just stepped out, walked briskly toward the sidewalk, and pretended like I had a purpose. I heard the tram's doors close behind me. And then, footsteps. He had gotten off too. I turned slightly. He was there. Closer than before. Eyes darker. Mouth set. No longer expressionless. There was something else now. Hunger. I froze. He stopped just a few feet away. We stood there in a cold, silent standoff beneath the buzzing streetlight. My breath caught in my throat. My vision swam with fear, and for a moment, I truly believed that I was about to die. Then salvation. A second tram approached from the opposite direction. The last tram of the night. My only way out. I turned on my heel and ran. I don't remember boarding it. Just the light. The warmth. The sudden sense of being inside a bubble of safety. I collapsed into the seat behind the driver and dared to look out the window. He was getting on too. But this time, he sat right behind me. I could feel him there. Closer than ever. I stood up, moved halfway down the tram, and sat again. So did he. 2 seats behind. Smiling faintly now. Like this was a game, and he already knew he'd won. My hands balled into fists. I stood again, this time walking to the back. Then stood near the door. He didn't follow. I could feel his amusement like heat from a fire. He thought I had nowhere left to run. The tram slowed for the second to last stop. 3 doors. All would open. 5 seconds max before they closed again. No one else was boarding. No one was getting off. I took a chance. As the doors opened, I bolted out. Then, like a magician in a trick act, I ran the length of the tram outside, hit the button at the back door, and leapt back inside before they shut. I crouched low behind a seat. My heart pounded in my ears. I held my breath. The tram pulled away from the station. He wasn't on it. I waited another 30 seconds before peeking out the foggy rear window. There he was, standing on the dark platform, spinning in circles like a predator who'd lost his prey. For the first time, I saw him show emotion, a twisted grimace of rage. He had been so sure he'd trapped me. I didn't give him a smile. I gave him the finger. That tram took me 3 stops farther than I needed. I didn't care. I walked the rest of the way home under streetlights that suddenly felt like sentinels. I never saw him again. I never told my parents. I didn't even tell my friends. I knew they'd tell me it was my fault, that I should have known better. But I got home, and I survived. And now, when I walk the city at night, I don't feel powerful, or mature, or untouchable. I feel lucky, because some people don't get that second chance. It was the kind of day where the sky looked fake, too blue, too still, like someone had painted it above us. The kind of weather that made you forget the world had any sharp edges. Chrissy and I were 17, practically inseparable since 6th grade. Both of us were small but scrappy, soccer kids with sun-bleached hair and knee scars we wore like badges of honor. It was early summer, 1996. We lived in a quiet town where not much happened, unless you knew where to look. The reservoir sat just beyond the edge of town, a deep body of water surrounded by winding trails, steep rock faces, and endless woods. It was technically public land, though locals joked that strange things happened there after dark. Chrissy and I didn't care about that. We just wanted to get high and talk about everything and nothing. I had scored some decent weed from my older cousin, packed my pipe, and thrown a couple bottles of water into a day pack. We parked in the nearly empty gravel lot around 2 p.m., only 2 other cars there, one beat-up red truck and a gray sedan with tinted windows. Peaceful, Chrissy said, stretching her arms. Her blonde ponytail caught the sun like gold thread. Yeah, I said, trying to sound casual. But something about that truck didn't sit right with me. Its windows were too dusty to see inside. It looked like it had been parked for days. We walked the dirt trail hugging the water's edge, chatting, laughing, breathing in pine and lake mist. After about 20 minutes, we veered off onto a smaller trail leading into the woods and up the hillside. That's when I noticed the silence. No birdsong, no rustling, no frogs croaking near the marshy edges. Just silence. I stopped. Do you hear that? Chrissy turned. Hear what? Exactly. She tilted her head, brows furrowing. It's quiet. Too quiet. We both laughed nervously, trying to shake it off. But after a few more steps, I heard something. Crunch. Leaves. Behind us. Then nothing. We stopped again. Looked back. No one. Probably a squirrel, Chrissy said. But squirrels don't walk in human footsteps. Another few minutes passed. Then we heard it again, closer this time. Steady, careful footsteps trailing us. Now we weren't laughing. Let's pick up the pace, I whispered. The trail forked up ahead. To the left, it led to a small clearing and the base of a steep rock formation we'd climbed once before. A heavy-duty rope had been bolted to the side for people to scale it, a climbing practice spot, unofficial but popular with teenagers. High ground, I said. We can see what's going on from up there. Chrissy nodded, face pale. We hurried to the base of the rock. I held the rope steady as she climbed, both of us moving faster than I thought we could. My hands burned from gripping the rough fibers, but adrenaline numbed the pain. At the top, we collapsed behind a low ridge of stone, hearts pounding. Then we saw him. A man had emerged into the clearing, maybe mid-40s, tall and lean, wearing a dark jacket despite the heat, old jeans, and thick glasses. He had a blank face. Not angry, not curious, just empty. He stopped 20 feet from the base of the rock, looked straight up at us. I stood slowly, trying to look confident. "Hey," I shouted, my voice cracking slightly. "Can you give us some space? We're just trying to hang out." He didn't reply, just stared. Then he took a step forward, toward the rope. Chrissy looked at me, panic in her eyes. "What do we do?" I scanned the clearing. Beside the edge of the rock was a circle of stones. Someone had built a fire pit there, probably last summer. I grabbed a rock, about 8 inches across, rough and jagged. "Heavy. Get rocks," I said. "Big ones." Chrissy didn't hesitate. We built a small pile behind us like an arsenal. I held my rock with both hands, my fingers trembling but firm. "If he climbs, we hit him. We don't hesitate." He reached out and touched the rope. "Back off," I screamed. "If you come up here, you're going to get hurt." "We're not kidding." His fingers hovered for a second longer. Then he stopped, tilted his head, blinked. Then he let go. We watched as he backed slowly into the woods, still staring, still silent. Then his shape disappeared into the trees. But we didn't move. Not for 20 minutes. We sat on that rock, sweating in the sun, watching every branch and leaf below for movement. The crickets eventually returned, timidly at first, then in chorus. But it didn't feel like safety. Chrissy looked at me. "We have to get to the car." "I know." We gathered our rocks, big ones in hand, smaller ones in our pockets. She went first. I covered her, my eyes scanning every inch of the clearing. Then it was my turn. My knees scraped the rock as I climbed down, keeping low. Chrissy stood at the bottom, still gripping her rock like a club. We moved fast, not running, but alert, watching, listening, ready. The trail back felt longer, darker. Every snapping twig made my stomach twist. The forest didn't feel still anymore. It felt like it was hiding something. We didn't speak until the gravel lot came into view. The red truck was gone. So was the sedan. We ran to the car, locked the doors the second we were inside. Chrissy's hand shook as she started the engine. I looked out the window at the woods. Nothing moved. We never went back to the reservoir again. That night, I replayed every second in my mind. His face, the way he stared, the way he tested the rope, like he'd already decided what he wanted to do. I didn't sleep. Neither did Chrissy. A few days later, I overheard a conversation at the diner downtown. An older man talking about some creep who'd been spotted hanging around the park near the reservoir, following joggers, lurking behind trees. They didn't catch him. No one knew who he was. But Chrissy and I knew exactly what he was capable of. We had stared him down from 20 feet above, rocks in hand, hearts in our throats. And we knew if we hadn't climbed that rock, if we hadn't threatened him, screamed at him, made it clear we would fight, we might have disappeared into the trees. Just another story. Just another warning. I was 13 when I met him. Back then, I didn't think much of usernames or avatars. Just glowing names in a server, fast-moving chats, and late-night laughs with strangers who made me feel seen. Discord was my home away from a home that didn't feel safe. My parents were always fighting. School was hell. I was lonely. He went by Eli_Tense. He was 16, or so he said. We met in a music-sharing server where people posted their favorite playlists. His taste was immaculate. Lo-fi, obscure indie, glitchy remixes. I was obsessed. He DM'd me after I posted about how music helped me sleep. That's how it started. He was funny, smart, kind of sarcastic, but in a way that made me feel like I was in on the joke. We started talking every day. He sent me songs he said reminded him of me. I saved every one. I started staying up later just to talk to him. 3 months in, I told him I had a crush on him. He said he felt the same, that I was different, that I got him. He told me not to tell anyone. At first, it was sweet. He sent me poems, lyrics, late-night voice chats. Then the rules started. Don't talk to other guys. Don't join new servers unless I say it's okay. Don't post selfies. Don't be online without telling me. I laughed it off. I thought that's what relationships were like. I thought it meant he cared. Then came the photos. The first time he asked, I said no. He guilt-tripped me for hours. Said he felt, rejected, that I didn't love him the way he loved me. Said I was selfish. Said he was crying. So I sent one. Then another. Then more. I didn't realize what was happening. I was just trying to keep him happy. Every time I tried to pull away, he would say something like, "If you leave me, I'll kill myself." Or worse, "I'll tell everyone what you've sent me." He was holding me hostage with my own fear. I thought I was his only one, until I saw a message pop up in one of our shared servers. Someone calling him out, posting his real name, accusing him of doing the same thing to other girls, saying he was 19, not 16. I confronted him. He didn't deny it. He just said, "You're not special, but you're still mine." He ghosted me after that, blocked me, deleted our chat logs. I cried for days, weeks. I hated myself for missing him, hated myself more for trusting him. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. A few months later, accounts started appearing in the servers I still visited. Usernames like Cry4Validation, RottingAngel47, and Static_slut. They'd spam chats with slurs, fat jokes, racial slurs, I mixed, and twisted parodies of things I'd said in voice chat. "You're just a fat whale. Static should kill herself. She's a walking breakdown." Mods would ban them, but they always came back. New names. Same language. Same obsession. Some accounts even had my old photos. They started demanding me, telling me how disgusting I looked, sending me images, horrific ones. Gore. Porn. Dead animals. Sometimes edited pictures of my face on horrifying things. It was a digital haunting, and it only got worse. The account named _static echo hit different. It messaged me like we were friends. "Hey, just checking in. You doing okay today?" I was confused. I asked who they were. "You don't remember? We talked last night. You told me about your meds. You said you see shadows when you're alone." I froze. I hadn't told anyone that. They kept going. "I think you forgot your dose again. You sound paranoid. Are you sure you're real?" That's when I knew. It was him. He was pretending to be other people now. Pretending we'd had conversations I knew never happened. Trying to gaslight me. Trying to make me question my own memory. I blocked him. And that's when the floodgates opened. Hundreds of DMs from fake accounts. Some copied my username. Others were just slurs and threats. One simply said, "I'm already in your walls." That was the first time I stopped sleeping. I deleted my Discord. Made a new one. Didn't friend anyone from my past servers. Changed my tag. Left every community. Still, they found me. Sometimes I'd log in and see a new friend request from an account I didn't recognize. And the name would make my stomach turn. Eli returns. "Marry me, Static. You can't run." I started using VPNs, creating burner emails. I deleted every old social media account. But still, somehow, they found me. In 2020, during quarantine, I met someone new. His name was Matt. He was kind. Sweet. He didn't make me feel small. We played games on Discord, watched movies over call, stayed up laughing again. I started to feel human again. Then, 2 months in, Matt got a message. From a new account. "You shouldn't trust her. She's a liar. She's broken." Matt told me about it. I begged him not to respond. But more messages came. They knew things I'd said privately. Things I'd forgotten I ever told Eli. And then I got the message. "You can't erase me. I made you. You're just Static without me." I started therapy that year. Told everything to my counselor. Well, most of it. I tried reporting him to Discord, to the server admins, even filed a vague cyberstalking report to the police. But I didn't have his full name. No address. Not even a verified photo. He was a ghost with Wi-Fi. The harassment died down for a bit. I dared to hope. Until 2021. That fall, I got a message from an account named Tune For You. The message simply read, "Found you." Attached was a link to a YouTube video. The channel was called Marry the Static. The video title, Her File. It was a montage of every photo I'd ever sent him. Nothing explicit, but suggestive. Cropped. Glitched. Edited to make me look like something unclean. It played over a distorted remix of my favorite song. The one he sent me when we first met. The comments were worse. "She wanted this. Another psycho girl. What's her nickname?" I reported the video. It disappeared in 2 days. But I still see it in my dreams. It's 2025 now. I don't go online much anymore. My therapist says I have hypervigilance. Like I'm always waiting for the next threat. I don't keep photos of myself on my phone. I don't use my real name online. I don't make playlists, but sometimes, when it's late and the house is quiet and I'm about to fall asleep, I hear the ding of a message notification. My stomach drops, and in the silence, I swear I can hear a voice from 1,000 miles away saying, "You're still mine." When we moved into the new house, I remember standing at my bedroom window and noticing the view. We were tucked at the bottom of a gentle slope, the kind that rolls like a soft wave before rising into a small hill. At the top of that hill was another home, a modest two-story with a faded gray exterior, its windows looking directly down into ours. I remember thinking, they have a perfect view of everything we do. I brushed it off. After all, it was just a house. Just another quiet neighbor in a sleepy little suburb. But I was wrong. That house would become the center of something that still makes my skin crawl. It started on a Friday night. I was 16, staying home with 3 of my friends. Our parents were all out celebrating my mom's birthday, nothing wild, just some wine and karaoke downtown. They trusted us to stay out of trouble. We weren't even doing anything exciting, just chilling in my room, lights off, music low, scrolling through our phones and sharing memes. My dog, Luna, barked once or twice, but she always did that. Birds, squirrels, wind, she barked at shadows. But this time, she wouldn't stop. 10 straight minutes of growling, pacing, and barking toward the sliding glass door that led to the backyard. At first, we joked about it. Dogs bark, right? But then the barking stopped, and a new sound replaced it. Crunching. It circled my room. First on one wall, then the other. Heavy footsteps in the dry leaves. Then came the scraping, like fingernails dragging across wood. We went dead silent. My friend Anna whispered, "Is someone out there?" Then, bang. The glass door shook, like something or someone had thrown its weight against it. We screamed and ran into the hallway. Luna sprinted in behind us, tail tucked, fur raised. That's when I saw it. Pressed against the glass, panting, eyes wide and wild, A large black dog. It was up on its hind legs, paws smearing the glass, as if trying to get in. But it wasn't the dog that made my heart sink. It was the man behind it. Dressed in all black, hoodie up, standing perfectly still. His face was shadowed, but I could tell he was looking in, watching us. Anna's voice broke the silence. "What the hell are you doing?" And that's when the man finally spoke. Calmly, softly, "I don't know." Then he tugged the dog's leash and disappeared into the dark. When our parents returned an hour later, we told them everything. They were half concerned, half annoyed, chalking it up to a neighborhood dog getting loose. My mom promised to ask the neighbors the next day. She did. The man from the hill, our backyard neighbor, admitted it was him. Said his dog got into our yard and he came to retrieve it. Claimed he'd meant to knock on the door but got nervous when he saw our lights were off. It sounded plausible, except it wasn't. See, our gate has a latch. A heavy one. You can't just walk in. Someone has to lift it from the inside. That night, it had been shut. I remembered checking it. Luna doesn't bark like that unless someone is already inside the yard. That meant he opened it, let himself and his dog in. Uninvited. We filed a report just in case. The officer was polite but nonchalant. No harm done, no injuries, no damage, just a neighborly misunderstanding, they said. Keep the gate locked, they advised. We did, but that didn't stop him. A month passed without incident. Then one night, I woke up with the weirdest sensation, like someone was watching me. I rolled over to adjust my pillow and froze. There was a face in my window. I don't know how else to describe it. Pressed up against the glass. Motionless. Eyes dark. A black face covering wrapped around his mouth and nose. Only the eyes visible. The porch light from the neighbor's house spilled in through a crack in the curtains, but this face blocked it. He was standing there, close enough to fog the glass with his breath. I couldn't scream. I just texted my mom. She came into the room seconds later, but when she turned on the lights and looked out, he was gone. We checked the security cam in the backyard. Nothing. Which made sense. The camera points toward the gate, not the windows. Things got weird after that. I started catching glimpses of him during the day. He'd be on his balcony, leaning against the rail, just staring down at our house. Sometimes with binoculars. Sometimes not. But always staring. If I locked eyes with him, he'd turn and walk away. But if I looked back 5 minutes later, he'd be there again. Same spot, same pose, same silent presence. I began closing my curtains all the time. My mom confronted him again. He denied everything. Claimed he worked from home and liked the view. We installed new lights, extra locks. My dad even added motion sensors to the yard. But none of it helped, because every time something happened, it was just subtle enough to avoid proof. Scratches on the siding, muffled footsteps on the patio, dog hair, black dog hair found outside my window in the morning. Then came the final straw. It was around midnight. I was in the kitchen, getting water, when I heard soft clicking from the back patio. I turned off the light and peeked through the blinds. And there he was, crouched in the shadows, just squatting there, watching the house, watching me. Luna growled low behind me. I flipped on the light and screamed. He ran. The police took it more seriously this time. We showed them the history, the prior report, the patterns. They spoke to him. He denied everything again, said he was walking his dog and got turned around. But they warned him. Officially, he hasn't come near the property since. But that doesn't mean he's gone. Every now and then, I catch something movement on the hill, a flicker of a figure retreating behind a curtain. Sometimes I'll hear soft footsteps when I'm home alone. And sometimes I'll wake in the middle of the night, heart racing, sure that I'm being watched. I don't sleep with the window open anymore. I don't walk outside after dark. And I always keep the gate locked. But sometimes I wonder if one night I'll forget, or if he's just waiting, watching, planning. Because people like that don't stop. They just get better at hiding. They always told me the night shift was quiet. I was 19, freshly out of high school, and desperate for a paycheck, when a family friend offered me a spot working the graveyard shift at a 24-hour gas station just outside my rural town. I said yes without thinking. I figured it would be easy. Coffee, cigarettes, and the occasional trucker passing through. No real stress. Just me, the hum of the fluorescents, and the sound of highway wind outside. I was wrong. The training was during the day at first, and honestly, I kind of liked it. The manager, Bianca, was in her early 30s, sharp-witted with a dry sense of humor and a weird obsession with keeping the hot dog roller spotless. She taught me the ropes, how to refill the soda machine, how to do money orders, how to reboot the POS if it froze. But she also warned me subtly about the regulars. They'll test you, she said. Not with stealing or anything, just with presence. Presence? I laughed. She didn't. There was a woman named Melinda who came in a lot. Always cheerful, a little too talkative. She'd pick up a Diet Coke in the morning, come back with her kids' lunches in the afternoon, then again around 9 p.m. just before her husband got home. When Bianca worked the night shift, Melinda was often already here, chatting in the corner, sipping coffee like she belonged behind the counter. You too close? I asked once. Bianca just said, she's lonely. Then one day, Bianca asked me to take over her shift permanently. Said she was tired of nights. I thought she just wanted better hours. Now I wonder if she was running. The first week on my own was uneventful. Mostly just mopping floors, checking cameras, reading manga between cigarette breaks. It wasn't until the third week, on a stormy Thursday, that it all started. It was just after 2 a.m. when I heard the chime. The sound of the door. That late? No one ever came in after 1:30 unless it was an emergency or a lost traveler. I was in the back room dumping the mop water when I froze. I heard shuffling. Slow. Measured. I peeked out. There was a man at the counter. He was hunched, wiry, wearing a tattered raincoat. His back was to me, but I could see his hands, long, pale fingers gripping a pair of wire cutters. He was cutting into the back of the money order machine. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then I heard him muttering, over and over again, "Where's Bonka? Where's Bonka?" It wasn't a word. It sounded like a name. Bonka? No. Bianca. He was saying Bianca. My skin prickled cold. I didn't dare approach. The only phone was in the back office, but if I moved, the hallway light would hit me. Instead, I texted Melinda. Someone's here. He's cutting into the counter. Says your name. Call the cops. Please. Her reply came instantly. On my way. He moved suddenly. Walked out toward the gas pumps. I took the chance to dart forward and lock the front doors. Seconds later, he returned and slammed his fist into the glass. The sound echoed like a gunshot. His face pressed against the door. Thin, sharp features, eyes wide and wet like a deer's, and a grin that made my stomach lurch. He started pacing. Then he went to the trash cans and began throwing them, one by one. He overturned them, kicked them, and then knelt beside the gas pump. That's when he pulled out a knife and started sawing at the fuel line. Red and blue lights flashed just as I started dialing 911 myself. The cops arrived in under 5 minutes, Melinda pulling in behind them like she had never stopped driving. They grabbed him. He screamed when they touched him. Screamed for Bonka. Screamed for Bianca. Later, when it was safe, I found Melinda inside, silent, holding her coffee like it was a holy relic. I asked her what that was all about, who he was. She finally told me. His name was Thomas. Used to come in every night when Bianca worked. Always polite, always quiet. Sometimes just bought gum and left. But over time, he stayed longer. Watched her mop. Watched her laugh. Watched her through the glass during her smoke breaks. He asked for her number once. She said no. After that, he changed. Started sitting in the corner, watching her until sunrise. Never speaking. Just watching. She reported him to corporate. They said not to confront him. Eventually, Bianca changed her schedule. He stopped showing up, but not for good. He waited, and the night I took her place, he returned. A week after the arrest, a package arrived at the gas station. No return address. Inside was a VHS tape. I don't know why, but I took it home. It was unlabeled. Just static at first. Then slow, flickering footage of the store. Of me, cleaning. Walking. Hours of footage. From outside the windows. Then Bianca. The tape cut to her standing behind the counter, nervous, clutching a phone. Thomas enters. They talk. She's trying to smile. He's crying. Then the tape glitches. Weird buzzing. Warped audio. His face morphing in and out of the grainy tape, like something else is crawling out of the static. Then black screen. A title appears in shaky white text. Bonka isn't real, but she can still bleed. I burned the tape that night. I never went back to that gas station. Bianca moved away shortly after. I heard she changed her name. Melinda still texts me on random nights. No words. Just a song link or a timestamp, or sometimes a screenshot from old security footage. The still frame always shows the window, and behind the glass, a faint figure, waiting. I've only talked about this once before. I was 17, a junior in high school. That day changed everything. Not just the way I saw the world, but the way the world looked at me. And it all started with a sound. Not a scream, not a gunshot, not at first. Just slamming, like someone was punching a locker, over and over. It was early May, almost the end of the school year. That meant tension. Seniors pulling pranks, teachers giving up, and the rest of us stuck somewhere between finals and freedom. Lunchtime was chaos. Hallways packed, lunch trays crashing, everyone yelling over each other. So when I first heard the slamming echoing down the east wing, I didn't even look up from my sandwich. Then someone ran past me. A freshman, pale, eyes wide. He screamed. He has a gun. There was a moment, a horrible, stretched out second, where no one moved. Like we were all waiting for someone to laugh and say, just kidding. Because it had happened before. Not the shooting, but the threats. Post online. Anonymous messages. Kids writing, "Don't come to school tomorrow," on bathroom stalls. We had cops walking the halls that whole semester. There was even a school assembly about it. So when it actually happened, we didn't know if it was real. Until the security guard, Mr. James, ex-military, ran down the hallway like the devil was chasing him. And he wasn't yelling. He was running. That's when the screaming started. Students leapt from lunch tables. Trays scattered. Some ran. Some froze. Others were pulled, by teachers, by strangers, into classrooms. I remember thinking, where's my sister? She was a freshman. She'd just left for the bathroom 5 minutes earlier. My mind fractured. Do I find her? Or do I hide? I chose wrong. I ran up the main staircase, shoving past people. 4th period classroom. Room 412. Mrs. Carver's senior English. She saw me in the hallway and grabbed me, pulled me inside. She locked the door, flipped the light switch. Code red. No one said a word. The intercom crackled. Our principal's voice, steady, but shaking beneath it, came through. This is a code red. I repeat, this is not a drill. Hide your students. Lockdown now. That's when it hit. This was real. The desks moved fast. Seniors stacked them like barricades. Some crouched behind cabinets. Others clutched anything they could. Scissors, textbooks, baseball bats from gym lockers. Our phones lit up like fireworks. I texted my mom. There's a shooter. I'm safe. Don't come. Please. She texted back. On my way. I cried. Not because of fear. Because I thought I just killed my mom. Somewhere, downstairs, we heard something bang. Not metal. Not glass. A deep, echoing crack. A gunshot. My heart thudded so hard I felt sick. Someone next to me was whispering a prayer. Another was holding their friend's hand so tightly their knuckles were white. The seconds crawled. Minutes turned to hours. The room was hot, the air stale with fear. And outside the door, in that wide hallway, silence, which was somehow worse than noise. I got a text from my sister. I'm okay. We're locked in Mr. Lee's room. He's blocking the door. I almost collapsed from relief. But then she sent a second message. He's trying to open the door. My blood went cold. I didn't respond. I didn't move. I just stared at the door in front of me, our door, and waited. At some point, hours later, we heard a voice. Not a student. Not a teacher. Deep. Firm. Police. Hands up. Everyone stay where you are. Then the door opened. We were searched. Slowly. One by one. Some students cried. Some didn't move. Some looked dazed, like they had no soul left. When we were let out, we passed the cafeteria. Trays were still on the floor. Shoes abandoned. Phones buzzing. It looked like a battlefield after the war had ended. Empty, but echoing. No one died. Miraculously, no lives were lost. They never found the shooter. Some said it was a senior who slipped out a back door. Others said there never was a shooter, that it was a prank gone too far. But I was there, and I heard the shot. I saw the chaos. And I know the terror that sat in my chest for 10 straight hours, gnawing at me like a rat in the walls. I dropped out of high school that summer. Moved 5 states away to live with my older brother. Started over. I didn't tell many people why I left. Just said I needed a change. It wasn't until a year later, during a party at my brother's apartment, that I met Devin. He was laid back, friendly, a few years older. One night, we got drunk, and he let something slip. I almost shot up my school once. Everyone laughed. I didn't. I asked what he meant. He laughed again, shrugged. Didn't do it, though, so it's chill. I stared at him, mouth dry. That was the moment I realized something. Nobody cares until it's personal. I told my brother the next day. Told him what happened. What Devin said. They stopped inviting him over after that. But not because they were shocked. Because I had been a part of it. Because my story made it real. It's been almost 10 years now. I don't flinch when I hear fire alarms anymore. But I still check the exits in every room I walk into. I still keep my phone on silent in crowds. And sometimes, in my dreams, I hear that freshman running past me again, voice thin and shaking. He has a gun. To anyone reading this, it doesn't matter if you saw the blood or not. It doesn't matter if you were in the room or just down the hall. Trauma echoes. It hides in lockers, in desks, in the bottom of backpacks. It walks the same routes you use to walk between classes. And it never really leaves. So if you've lived through it, even just once, you're not alone. You're never alone.